I'm going to cut out the intro.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Planet Film Network. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to edit these two together right now, but we are entering our spoiler-filled territory of our Thunderbolts talk. So most likely you'll be watching this right after we just talked about our non-spoiler thoughts, which will be up as its own separate video as well. But let's go ahead and dive right into this. So we're going to kind of take this in a kind of 4-act structure here to try and get through everything, because there's so much in this movie that we want to talk about. Really 5 acts, because we're going to talk about both post-credit scenes. Which is let's just start off. The setup starts with Yelena at this lab in Malaysia for this Ox Corp, OXE, which is a brand that started in the comics with Val and everything. So that's also making its MCU debut, which it's just kind of like set dressing in this movie. It's not really like this big organization that's going to be going forward. Not that I think, at least. But then you have the main setup, which you kind of expect from the trailers, which is they are all assigned to each other on this same job. And basically through that sequence, they realize that they have been set up by Val, who is just trying to get rid of everything involved with this Sentry project. That we are also seeing on the flip side, Bucky being at the hearing where she is being impeached as the head of the CIA, which then leads Bucky down this trail of trying to figure out what she is up to and what he can do to try and stop it, which is, what leads us on the main action of the movie. So starting off all this stuff with the vault, meeting Bob, the beginning of the movie. How do you feel about all this kind of setup of the movie?
Yeah, I thought it was all great. I loved, I loved the sequences in the vault, the whole kind of fight choreography. I thought that all looked really good. And just, I guess, the hearing in the beginning was good. I think I don't know if I wish we got like more of it.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, maybe. I think maybe that's where my problem lies with it. I thought the beginning as well with Yelena kind of breaking into that facility was good. I thought the beginning with the comedic wasn't as strong as the rest of the movie, and I think that's just and I forgot what I was watching, a review where and I think it's maybe just because Yelena doesn't have, like, Florence Pugh doesn't have anybody to bounce off of.
Yeah, she's
and
just kind of
obviously once she gets with David Harbour, it's like, oh, okay, and here are the jokes, and they start flying, and it's way more funny. But at the beginning, I thought when she was kind of not every single one landed, where I was just kind of like, whatever. But yeah, no, I thought the beginning was really strong, and obviously, like you said, we get the introduction to Sentry, and him kind of not knowing, and you can kind of, I feel like you can kind of put the pieces together before obviously it's kind of shown to you like what happened to him. But I thought like his kind of introduction, not knowing where he is, what's going on, all that stuff was really interesting. I thought it was a strong start and definitely like a good indication of like the rest of the movie is going to be good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree as well. I think the thing that I want to touch on with it is I think the first act of this movie really displays that they are going to use the character of Bucky really right in this movie. Because you're talking about, you're like, I feel like we can kind of put some of the pieces together, a little bit ahead of the characters on Sentry. And it's like, I loved that they used some of the other ones too, but I love that they primarily used Walker to do that, because it's like that builds on that this is a smart guy and a smart military guy, regardless of any of the other stuff. And I feel like this movie, I say the use of Bucky because this movie very easily could have just gone, no, Bucky has to be on the team. And it's like he has to be there at the beginning. And it's like, I love that Bucky was not there for any of the Vault stuff, because it really gave our main 4, I guess we should talk about in this scene, our main 5 becomes our main 4 when Ghost shoots Taskmaster.
No surprise really to anybody.
Yeah. I feel like, was it a surprise for you that it was literally the second scene of the movie?
Yeah, I guess. I feel like when it happened, everybody was like, yeah, that makes sense. Just because like she wasn't in like the market really or any of that other stuff.
Yeah, she gets her one line and she's like, "Stay down" or whatever she said. "I'm not here for you." Yeah, that was great. Enough lines to bump that payday for sure. But yeah, so that happens there. But again, I loved how this opening vault sequence really builds up the connection and the kind of the tone and the back and forth that we're gonna get used to with these four is really established in that very opening scene. Particularly when they have to try and escape through the elevator. I thought that everything with that, the comedy with that, with them trying to climb, with John being like, I'm going to make the decision to just jump, and I know I'm going to be able to catch all these guys, which he does, but he doesn't tell them about his plan. He just makes the choice and just boom, just does it. Also, again, I thought somebody who could have overpowered that scene is Red Guardian. The fact that Red Guardian wasn't there in that moment too, I thought was great. It also helped to not have. I feel like with two super soldiers, you're like getting out of there way easier because it's like they could just throw people to each other and then make their way up. But I loved the having to like, even though obviously physically it makes no sense at all. They said it was a mile deep, but like I just love the crab walking up the building to try and get everything done with that. I thought was fantastic. And then again, another thing that this movie does really well that starts right in the first act is this whole movie is just like out of the out of the furnace and into the fire, or out of the frying pan into the fire. Like every scene is you get out of the last thing that you were worried about that you thought you were going to die by, and then you're immediately confronted with a new challenge. And I think leading into kind of our second act here, I think all the stuff with them escaping in that truck, I thought that is where the comedy, I was like, okay, we're going to be like safe here, because when he's like, tell us your information now, and John just goes, no. That's like that was so funny to me. And then the Dr. Phil joke I thought was fantastic. That was really, really funny. And he's not even on anymore. It's like a YouTube thing, and they took him off cable, but whatever. Like it's like, and also another thing I love, I'm really zeroing in. I don't know if you can tell, I'm really zeroing in on John Walker. I just think that I love where that character is and where that character is going. But I also loved all the stuff with him and his kid and Olivia, that it's like, you get that glimpse first thing. Because he's the first one to be touched by the void in the movie. He's the first one that gets like kind of transported to this vision of his watching over his I think they said it was his daughter, maybe. Watching over his kid, or being told to watch over his kid, but he's just wrapped up in reading, tweets about his own downfall. And I've said, I think to you and to other friends, that I'm like, that to me was like, in the very first trailer, that was my favorite shot in the trailer, to be like, okay, I think they're going to do this movie right. Because to me, it was like, that just is so emblematic of like who this character is. And the movie did not disappoint. Like the fact that was his whole kind of simmering under the surface arc, was that it's like he's telling everybody that he's still with his wife and with their kid and stuff. But then you find out, from Bucky, that she left him and took the kid, we don't even know how long ago. Because, I mean, you figure this movie is 4 years after Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it's like, it's been a while that we haven't seen him. Yeah.
And I think also, just speaking of that as well, this is something this movie does a good job of, is kind of filling in the blanks as well. Whereas, like you said with John Walker, if you didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is literally the only thing he's been in, you're probably like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And they do a good job of, obviously, with like, the tweets, they put out some context, like, oh, he's juiced up, he was Captain America, blah, blah, blah. And then the whole like, well, he killed that unarmed guy, which was kind of a really big turning point of that show. And so when they kind of just put it out there, it's like, okay, now I kind of understand this character. And then obviously they do the same thing with like flashbacks for like with Yelena or or Ghost kind of doesn't really. She doesn't have like a flashback necessarily, but she
kind of talks about it.
She kind of talks about it.
Yeah.
And honestly, Ant-Man and the Wasp is completely escaping my mind. So if we go into that more in that movie, I apologize. But yeah, so they give you some context for these characters. It's not just like, well, you didn't watch the recent stuff, so you're kind of SOL.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was great because it's like, I just think it did start feeling like homework. And I know that there are going to be people who go see this that are like, okay, I remember her from Black Widow because I saw that movie.
Right.
But like, who are these guys? And I think it does do a really effective way of just giving you the bare minimum exposition that you need, like the dime store Captain America. Well, I'll have I was actually the official Captain America. Yeah, until you murdered that guy in front of the entire world. Right. It's like those 4 lines catch you up on not everything, but catch you up on the broad strokes of everything that happened in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, aren't you the discount Cap? No, I was the real Cap. Yeah, but then you did this horrible thing. And then it's like, boom, you're caught up in 3 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I thought too, Ava's was a little, there was a little more meat on the bone in Falcon and Winter Soldier for John Walker. I think like 5 hours of screen time versus Ava's like 18 minutes in Ant-Man 2.
Yeah.
Like I think Sonny Birch had more screen time than her in that movie. So hers is a little more just like, I think Walker is like a SHIELD reject, always on the run for the past 20 years. Like, and she's like, I can't do anything about my costume. It's a cage that I had to figure out how to build for the past 5 years of my life to make sure I don't get ripped apart, anytime I move. And it's like, that one was a little more like, her origin is just a little more like undefined and all over the place. So I get that. I was surprised. I don't know about you. Were you thinking at all that Lawrence Fishburne could show up in this movie? Considering that's like where we left her off with, was that they were like, we're going to figure this out. I don't even remember what you're talking about. In Ant-Man 2, he's like her like protector. He's who like took her in from SHIELD. But also you got to remember in the timeline, this is 2027. So this is, whether Ava got blipped or not, this is either 5 or 10 years after Ant-Man 2. So she was technically healed or stabilized by Janet, like at least a decade ago, which is pretty interesting to think about. But yeah, I thought that she was great too. But let's move on to this kind of next part here, which is basically we have Val establishing all this stuff that we're leading to. Let's just jump over to we're getting everybody together in what is it called? Monument Valley, where Bucky finally shows up. He has this badass action sequence. He is able to kind of subdue the OXE workers that are kind of coming after the Thunderbolts, then teams up with them. Then Mel, who Bucky had spoken with previously, about saying, just give me a call if you're ever ready to kind of talk, aka to give me info on what Val has been doing. Finally decides to step up and calls Bucky, kind of confirms everything that the Thunderbolts have been telling him so far, because he's just kind of in this place of, do I believe them? Do I not believe them? Do I just kind of haul everyone in and then get the answers later? But with what they're telling him and then what Mel is telling him, he's like, pretty concretely, this is what is happening. So they all head to New York to take down Val or see what she's up to. While all that is happening, let's, I think, take this time to dive into Lewis Pullman as Bob. This is Bob that we met in the opening scenes of the movie in the vault, who, like you said, was kind of this happy-go-lucky guy who has been hinting at these medical procedures. We saw where he woke up in this kind of medical chamber, and kind of like walked out and was throwing up and everything like that. But now we cut over to Val and Sentry in the previous Avengers Tower, now called the Watchtower, and she is trying to convince him basically to step up and be this superhero that they designed him to be. So let's kind of bring everything up to there right before kind of our big third act. What were your thoughts on all this stuff? All of the kind of him jumping up and shooting up into the air and then like plummeting back down. was kind of a cool sequence. Didn't really like have a big impact on the plot other than like making everyone in that circumstance aware that he is super powered.
Right.
But what were your kind of thoughts on the overall Monument Valley escape up to getting to New York City to kind of deal with the third act of this movie, and really getting our teeth sunk into this character of Bob for the rest of the movie?
Yeah, the whole kind of escape scene I thought was, again, really well choreographed. I thought it was a good use of everybody's powers. I loved, the relationship between Yelena and Bob, and kind of her like, going, come with me, and he obviously doesn't really know. He doesn't have like, he has the power, but he doesn't know how to use it at this point. So her kind of like strapping him to her basically and carrying him around like on her back, I thought was a really fun scene. What'd you think of the machine gun unveiling his abs?
I thought it was great. I was like, well, there you go. Because it's like, it's kind of interesting because you don't really know. Like Bob's just kind of like, he keeps talking to himself, and it's like, I like that the audience is constantly, well, the audience that knows that Sentry is coming, I guess, is ahead of the characters, because you're like, he's just kind of like babbling to himself, but we kind of know that it's building up to something bigger than that. But it's interesting because I don't really know if he knows everything that he can do. So the kind of ab scene and him just running out and getting, shot up, I thought it was a really heroic moment, because it's like, I don't know if he knows that it's just going to all bounce off of him or not, but I like that whole thing.
I thought the scenes with obviously Red Guardian picking the whole crew up in the limousine, I thought that was all a great time. Don't drink the big gulp. And the Bucky scene where he rescues them, he blows up the two kind of trucks. I thought was all really well done. It was just a good way, I guess, to kind of get him involved. Because I feel like up to this point, he was kind of spotted in some scenes, mostly with Mel, I would say, which I also thought they had really good chemistry. I don't know if that was just
I thought they had great chemistry.
But then, he kind of fully joins them, and he's still not convinced, and I thought that was good. And then, he's obviously on the phone, and he's hearing all this stuff, and it's like exactly what they were just saying to him. He's like, oh, okay, so I thought that was all really well done. And then I thought the scene with, Valentina and Sentry, or Bill or Bob, sorry, in the really like warmly lit, like kind of, I don't like, it just felt like that was one of those sets that I was like, that just looks amazing.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it was just,
you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the room that they wake Steve up at the end of the first Avenger, like Captain America, the first Avenger, like where it was like, it's like this warm, like, obviously everything in this movie is like yellow. It was like this warm orange yellow glow room that was like this log cabin. But then they cut to the outside, and it's just this like white panel room that they're just like, that they're just like
just gives you like that sense of comfort and kind of makes Bob feel at ease, I feel like, in that moment probably. And then while he's simultaneously being manipulated to be this hero that can be used for whatever purpose. And I would have liked more, and I guess it's just kind of, maybe this is one of my problems with the whole Valentina, is like, we obviously, like, we get one of those scenes where it's like we see some of her trauma with her dad being killed, and I guess it's just kind of ambiguous. It's like we don't really know why he was killed necessarily, and kind of this is one of those things she's harboring, and then we don't really, and maybe this is something we'll get more into in like a different movie or something. I'm not really sure. But kind of more of that stuff I would have liked more, I guess. But I thought that whole scene with them two together in that room was really, really good.
Yeah. I thought that was fantastic. I really liked her little thing of like, is this nurturing enough? Like, is this look nurturing enough? Somebody and I leaned over to you in the movie and said, but giant Homelander vibes with Sentry. for sure. And even going beyond that, massive Madeline Stillwell vibes with how she was treating him. Definitely went a different way, but because one of them was able to not turn into a crazy monster,
right?
But yeah, let's take that and lead kind of into this whole scene where this scene that we're talking about has worked. She has convinced Bob enough that he is going to embrace this kind of sentry role. And then we get kind of our main group of Thunderbolts arriving at the Avengers Tower or the Watchtower. And then we have this kind of standoff in the lobby that then quickly leads to them going up in the elevator, the famous like elevator shot that we've seen in all the trailers. Is them going up to the main floor of the Watchtower, where kind of Bob is fully unleashed in his sentry form. And then let's just go ahead and go right through to the end of the movie where Bob is unleashed in his sentry form, kind of fights the overall Thunderbolts. They survive because he kind of realizes he's like, I never really wanted to kill these guys because they were nice to me, but more importantly, he's like, why am I killing these guys just because you said so?
Yeah.
And that's really where the Homelander stuff comes in, where it's like, you made me, why should I listen to you again?
You just called me a god.
Yeah, you just called me. Yeah, I love that she goes, I think we're using the word God pretty loosely here. And he lays it out. He goes, you said I was more powerful than all the Avengers combined, which includes at least one god. Yeah, I like that line. So I just thought Lewis Pullman in every iteration of this character was fantastic. And let's talk about the next iteration of the character, which is Valentina obviously has this kill switch put into him that Mel then uses to kind of what she thinks is going to be like, oh my God, I got like an easy win here. I could just do this, end this right now and like get the fuck out of the situation. We see his eyes kind of fill with blood, drops to the ground, but then obviously, we pretty much figured that is not going to be the end of Sentry. And then everybody kind of regroups out on the ground where then they see the Void, or his new manifestation as the Void, capital T, capital V, just kind of standing over the city. How did you feel about the look of Void? How did you feel about the kind of Inception kind of room? And then how did you feel about the finale itself with them going into him? And, I'll just say it because some people are up in arms or whatever, but beating the villain with a hug, which I think, is a very big trope of like years and years of entertainment. I think this is maybe the best executed thing of that I've ever seen in my life. And as I said to you in the moment, not only that, I think it was awesome that it wasn't just a hug. It was like pulling at him, which to me mimicked that very first poster of the movie of all of them on top of each other, like in this kind of dog pile, is kind of how they solved the situation at the end, with the beautiful speech from Yelena to him. And there's stuff in this movie that we just don't have time to get into, like with the, we could definitely touch on it, but we got to breeze over some stuff. But like the Yelena Red Guardian scene in the street, was fantastic, which then kind of gives her the strength to kind of convey what Alexi said to her, to Bob, which is, I was wrong what I said. We're not alone. We are much stronger together, even if we're not a group. Just having one person in your corner can make you infinitely stronger than how you feel when you're alone. And I thought that message being kind of the core of the movie, just kind of blew me away, that like they would do that in a Marvel Disney movie. But yeah, what were your thoughts on all that kind of stuff? Just kind of go wherever you want up until the end.
Yeah, I thought the first, the design on Sentry, I thought was amazing. Just kind of just this deep, dark black all over his body, and then just kind of these fading lights out of his eyes was actually very terrifying. It kind of reminded me of like Pennywise when he like opens his mouth and you see the dead lights type thing. So I thought that all was great. I didn't realize Sentry was that strong. So when they're just kind of trying to fight him, that looks amazing. When they're trying to fight him at the top of the tower and he's just like, this is like nothing.
Nothing.
Like, I didn't realize he was like that strong. So right away you're like, oh shit, you know, like how
I did think it was interesting though that it started heating up, but he didn't seem to have any effect against Bucky's arm. Like he took it out of the socket, but he didn't like break it. Like
I thought it was gonna break.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, here we go again. Like we're getting it's new arm territory. But yeah, I thought that was interesting that they were like, he is very powerful, but it didn't seem like vibranium to him was like tissue paper. Like it seems like there are maybe some limitations to it, which I thought
I did think it was a little obviously, like you said, we get the kill switch. I thought it was a little quick that they made it so fast, because at one, I think, I forget if it breaks or whatever happened.
She said they made it, but it was in the vault. So she was like, we burnt it. So
we burnt it.
So they were like, we got to remake it real fast.
And I did think it was like a little fast, because I was like, didn't you just tell her to do this? And what has it been, like an hour maybe? But you know, whatever, you can look past that. I thought obviously him kind of Void kind of sending the New York City into this eternal darkness, and kind of you know, I don't even know what the term would be, voiding these people on the streets, especially that little girl.
Saying, yeah.
That scene Red Guardian saves, then she just immediately gets like erased.
Yeah. The tension in that scene was so good, because I'm like, is he gonna die here? Like, is it like is the thing that's gonna fall? Like, I thought honestly, I wouldn't have put it past the movie if like the thing that was falling was just gonna like, is it offensive if I say like Billy Mays him? Like was just gonna hit the exact right part of his head and just like kill him. Yeah. Like I thought it was gonna be like the girl was gonna run out and then he was just gonna like fall over. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy it didn't go there. But then to be like, oh, okay, he survived. And then the girl just instantly is gone. I was like, oh my God. That was a huge, like, to quote Emergency Awesome, a WTF moment. That was
something I thought crazy. In this movie, that, and it was just like a quick kind of, when like you know, the helicopters start coming in, and you know, the big crane is coming, it's crashing into the building. I think that was one of those moments where it got a tad messy, where it was like, okay, everything has looked so good up to this point, and then we're kind of adding these CG elements in there, and it just did not work with what I had been seeing up to that point. So I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't look great. But anyways, yeah, I thought the whole kind of you know, Lena willingly walking into the void and searching for Bob through his kind of mind, basically, and kind of where she's going through. You know, she kind of goes to the school, and I mean, with a brutal scene of like all these girls putting together guns, and the ones who can't do it can get like whipped in the hands. I mean, that was crazy, ridiculous. And then the scene of her kind of fighting her own self in the bathroom, which gave me Oppenheimer vibes. I was like, is this like, I was like, this is like the same. I was like, this is, I thought it was gonna be like the same thing. Where it's like she's like drowning herself.
Was she killed, or was it her own hand?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
It was her from Thunderbolts.
So I thought that was all great. And then her obviously finding Bob in his kind of safe room, we'll call it.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is just probably his childhood attic, it seemed like. While his parents are obviously fighting downstairs, and they're, you know, him and his mom kind of getting abused by their dad, or by his dad. I thought that all worked really well. And obviously, like you said, the kind of final fight sequence of him fighting back his depression, and, you know, I love that moment where he's kind of beating him, and Yelena, I think, says like, you know, he wants you to do that. He wants you to hate yourself and all this stuff. And like you said, I guess it's kind of like it was solved by a hug, but I just felt like it was like more than that. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was just kind of this cheap way to end the movie.
Yeah, it felt very.
I got emotional, at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it really was. It was less of like a hug and more of like a like physically pulling him off of himself. Which also, I love the look of, you have Bob, not Sentry, not Void. You have real Bob with brown hair fighting Void, and then you see that it's like overtaking him.
Yes,
and then it comes up and it's like growing up his neck, and then it stops and it like comes up to here. It almost reminded me of the end of Avatar: The Last Airbender, when that's really out there, but when Aang is getting consumed by like the evil energy of the Fire Lord, it's like he goes all red, and then like just a little millimeter slit of blue is still there, and he like uses that to fight back, and then it's this like explosion of like all the negative energy leaving his body. It reminded me of that a lot, with just the visual way that they kind of showed the black like kind of consuming him. But yeah, I thought the ending was perfect, and it fit the movie perfectly. I mean, I don't know how else. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like so many people before this movie came out, it was like, well, how are these guys gonna kill this character? And it's like, they're probably not gonna kill this character. Like, what do you mean? And then he was obviously on the chairs for Doomsday, which, you know, was obvious with where this movie ends up. But yeah, I mean, anything else in the movie itself before we want to kind of wrap up here with the post-credit scenes? Other than just, I think it's really good.
Yeah, just kind of, I guess, in that final kind of fight scene as well. I think Yelena says, like, you know, like, again, where Red Guardian kind of told her he was wrong.
Yeah.
But Yelena says, like, earlier in the movie, she tells Bob to, like, you know, just push everything down, you know, anything that's bothering you, all that kind of depression, all that stuff you're thinking, just, you know, pull it down, and, you know, don't kind of let anybody see that. And then she kind of, obviously she realized that she was wrong, and, you know, that's just another kind of thing that I thought worked at the end, where she kind of tells Bob that she was wrong, and, you know, helps him to beat Void, or I guess they all, you know, kind of beat him. But
yeah. Yeah, I thought somebody said that the dynamic was like Yelena was like a big sister to like Bob being like a younger brother, and I thought that was that made a lot of sense. But also I love that it's like she's taking that role that Natasha was for her.
Yeah,
for Bob. It's like she had this, you know, great, sure, they didn't see each other for like years at a time, but, you know, she had this great relationship with her sister, particularly towards the end. But she had this great relationship with her sister, and she's now able to kind of pass what Natasha helped her out with onto Bob, which I thought was really, really awesome. And I guess that'll lead us to the post-credit scene, that's a dynamic that we're gonna keep seeing, because I just realized before we get to the post-credit scene, we should probably talk about the very end of the movie when the asterisk reveal happens. Just walk me through it. I mean, just talk us through how that kind of reveal happens. But what was your mind going through with, you see her on the one side of the tarp, the little cutout, and then they're all gearing up to go walk up to her, and then boom. What'd you think? Where was your mind going? What did you think was happening? And how did you like it, I guess?
Yeah, I thought it was really well played. I liked the end where Yelena kind of leans over to Valentina, is like, we own you now. Like, you're not gonna fucking, you know, tell us all what to do and all this stuff. Which I thought was really good. I mean, it was one of those things where I guess I would be surprised if, you know, I'm sure somebody on Twitter before this movie came out was like, oh, it's probably just like the new Avengers or something, you know.
Yeah.
It's probably just like as simple as that. And I don't know if that's like kind of, is that like anything to do with comics, or is that kind of like a stray away? I'm assuming the Thunderbolts,
I mean, the new Avengers absolutely are. Yeah,
right. There's like the new Avengers, but
yeah, they're different teams, but making them that is definitely not like a thing. Well, the closest thing would be like with like the Norman Osborn stuff, like the Norman Osborn stuff where he kind of creates. It's not really the Thunderbolts, but it's more like the Dark Avengers, and then they're kind of just parading as like the real Avengers. Right. So that's kind of like a really similar thing. And I know they talked about, I saw an interview, I think, with Brendan Davis and Jake Schreier, where he talked about how much of like the Norman Osborn like reveal influenced this final scene. And he was like, it's definitely in there. Like, you know, obviously Val is a very different character to Norman Osborn, but I still think it worked for kind of the MCU-ified version of that. I still think it works great, and I really liked. And then we will get to the post credit scene now, but I really liked the credit images, kind of taking us on this, what I assume would be maybe like the next year or next like 6 months of this, which is like the first reactions of like, oh my God, what the hell, these guys. And then kind of this slow turn in all of these headlines and these newspaper clippings that you see where the public really is kind of getting behind them as the new Avengers. But let's talk about these post-credit scenes. Obviously, we have one really funny one with Red Guardian being in a grocery store trying to get people to buy their Wheaties, which I thought was funny, with a totally different hair and mustache combination in that scene. And then the main post-credit scene with, again, a totally different hair and mustache combination from Red Guardian. And that is the big one. That's the one that we have since found out was directed by the Russo brothers, was done on the set of Doomsday, which we can definitely talk for a second on how much confidence that gives me of how good that movie's going to look. Because, I mean, you said it out loud, like uncontrollably, you said it out loud, where you were like, man, these suits, those suits in that finale, just the whole way that everything looked was insane. I mean, I just thought that
that might be the best any. I mean, I guess like the only thing I could think of that kind of rivals the kind of suits matching that look really good like that would be when they're going back in time in Endgame.
Yeah. I don't know if it's not going to focus in, but yeah, that like Bucky suit with the hair and everything, that look is crazy. And the fact that everybody is like these beautiful, bold color, like comic book versions of themselves. And they all have these new kind of Avengers-ized suits. Particularly, I loved Walker's a lot. I mean, Bucky's was incredible, but I really loved Walker's with the kind of the more like beret military hat instead of the regular Captain America helmet. I thought was really, really good. And then the scene itself, I just thought 2 minutes of them just talking and interacting again, from Falcon and Winter Soldier to Jake Schreier with this movie to the Russo brothers with just this one scene. I am so confident that they are going to nail these characters. Like, I mean, because you have to assume, I assume that Marcus and or McFeely, whichever one is coming back, I would assume that he's the one who wrote this scene for who is going to be writing Doomsday and Secret Wars. So if this is what he's writing for them, I think it's fantastic. And Yelena going, we have all this stuff going on in outer space, and they won't even talk about it. And Walker just going, out of space. This building is huge. What are you talking about? We're out of space. She said outer space. That was so funny. And then the moment to pull it up on screen, and I like Bucky kind of telling her the Avengery things to say. He's like, tell her to put it up on the screen. Like, you got to tell it to put it up on the screen. Like, it's just stuff that like we took for granted with the other team, but now these guys have to like, they're kind of not morons, but you know what I mean? They're kind of, they're like, they shouldn't really be there, but it's like, he's like, tell her to put it up on the screen. And then they put it up on the screen and bang, there you go. Fantastic Four ship landing in the 616 MCU. What were your thoughts on the post-credit scene, and what does it mean? Does it spoil Fantastic Four?
Well, first, like I said, I thought the suits were all amazing. I thought that they looked really, really clean. Interesting to see kind of Bob just on the sidelines. So in the book he was reading, it looked like he was reading Rick Rubin's book. I forget the title of it.
I love too his line, but I did the dishes though.
Oh yeah. So I wonder if that's kind of a matter of him being able to control his, because I guess I'm not exactly sure what, I guess his powers just what he was able to do pre-Void. So like just
it's interesting because it's like, how is it gonna work of like he is dyed blonde hair with the super suit, but then when he comes out of himself, he's back to regular Bob. So is this like a supersonic, thing where like Sonic can turn gold? Is Bob gonna be like, I'm activating right now, and then he kind of takes on the persona essentially? or does he have to physically put on a suit and physically dye his hair? Like, my guess is it'll be a like, I can physically make myself that.
Right.
Like, I can flip it on once he gets control of it, like I can flip a switch and like we can do Sentry. But I did like that they reminded us in the post-credit scene, they were like, yes, I might be able to handle Sentry, but if Sentry comes out, so is the Void.
Right.
Like, so it's like, exactly, I'm imagining in Doomsday or even in Secret Wars, it's like they're finally going to pull that trigger on needing Bob. But what is that going to mean? What is that going to unleash on the battlefield? Which it's like, it's almost like this nuclear option that is going to burn you as well. But like, you kind of have to pull that trigger in a fight like against Dr. Doom. Very excited to see where that goes.
I did think the whole kind of Fantastic Four ship coming out of the wormhole to, this universe was interesting.
Yeah.
I guess in the moment I was like, okay, well, I guess their planet's probably done. I was like, again, Galactus is the villain, so it's kind of like, well, what does he do? He's the eater of worlds, so chances are he's probably going to eat your planet. So I guess I shouldn't be really that surprised. But again, we have to see the movie, so we don't, they could go to this universe and then go right back. I don't know, and then come back again. You never know.
Yeah, I think I don't think it spoils anything, because it could be, other people have said too, I mean, this wouldn't be great parenting, but other people have said, like, is it just Herbie and like Franklin Richards on that? Like, is it like a Krypton thing where it's like, are they just sending Franklin to the MCU, and then Franklin is going to have to, maybe the Fantastic Four don't even, because people have been like, Reed would never leave his universe, even if it was, he would never abandon his people.
Yeah.
And it's like, has anyone thought about maybe they don't? Maybe they just send Herbie to another reality and to go, you need to come and save us. You need to come and get us somehow. Which actually, I'm like sitting here going like, so it'll be interesting to see how they do that. It's the other way around. The MCU, like Doctor Strange, can go over to Fantastic Four and get them at the drop of a dime. It's the Fantastic Four that had to use technology and the space shuttle and the spacecraft to kind of breach through universes. But yeah, I'm just more interested than anything. And I don't think it spoiled anything, because we have no context. It would be different if they said, oh, who's that in there? And he went, oh, it's Reed and my whole family. That would be different. But the fact that it was just the ship, that we have no idea when. So I heard somebody give a theory that was, what if this isn't even after the movie? What if they come to 616? What if like part of their origin is slipping through the boundary of a universe, and like we're witnessing when they got their powers, and then they're going to come back to their own universe and be like, where were we? Like, what was that place? Like, I think that could be a really, really cool thing that they could do with it. But also, even if it is just at the end of their movie, they all get in the space shuttle and they go, oh, now we're here. I don't think that ruins anything about Fantastic Four. That's what everybody was figuring was going to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
I also think it's technically not ruining anything, because it's like it's a scene from Doomsday, right? Or at least a reworked scene from Doomsday, or some version of this incident will happen in Doomsday. So it's like, it's not spoiling Fantastic Four, because if anything, it's spoiling a scene that will happen not in Fantastic Four, but a scene that will happen in Doomsday. So I don't really think that it's spoiling anything, but it was a really cool scene nonetheless, and I'm really excited to see kind of where everything's going. I also liked in that scene, all the dialogue, nothing was wasted. The whole like, did you go talk to Sam? Yeah. How did it go? Not well. Like, well, last time we saw Sam and Bucky together, they literally said, I love you. And they were hugging it out and stuff. So like, Bucky has now kind of inadvertently stepped into kind of taking over Sam's role as leading the Avengers. And I like that they went, we should copyright it. And Yelena goes, he already got the copyright. Like Sam went to a copyright office and copyright the name Avengers. So it's like, it definitely feels like we are going to have the Avengers, and then we're going to have these new Avengers that are actually in the tower and kind of who is the public more trusting of, who are they going to fall into, who are they going to believe in battle and what they say. I think all that stuff is really setting an interesting canvas for Doomsday. Not even talking about the Fantastic Four or the X-Men or any of the other people that are going to be in there. I just think that for a franchise that has gotten a lot of flack of, well, what is any of this even leading to? Who are the Avengers? We don't even know who the Avengers are going into Doomsday. Well, guess what? Now we have all of those answers answered, and we can just go into Doomsday, leaving the MCU's Earth in a really interesting spot, where the heroes are at really interesting dynamics with everybody. And then we can just go focus on Fantastic Four, learn their story, and then boom, next year we're going to catch back up with everybody and see, how it's all playing out with everything. So I just think we're in a really good spot, not even just based on the quality of the movie. Just, I think that the whole, the report of the Russos coming in and focusing on these last few movies to really add an overarching element to kind of tie everything together. I think we're really starting to see that with even just the small lines, like, how did it go with Sam? Not well. Because it's like that is to me leading to an interesting confrontation with those two in Doomsday, which is like, why would you start this team? Like, why? Yeah. That I was out here trying to get things going, and now here you are working with Valentina. Like, what is going on? And then it'll be interesting. Does Bucky and them be honest and give the dirt that they have on Valentina? Or are they just oh, we're not really working for her, she's just financing everything? Right. It'll be interesting to know how that works, because you'd figure if she stayed on as the head of the CIA, technically the new Avengers are more of a government team through the CIA versus the old team through SHIELD. So I think it'll be interesting. But yeah, anything else on the post-credit scene or anything else on this movie that you want to jump into?
No, I thought it was a really good, fun movie. And hopefully this is the sign of, like you said, sign of things to come, with obviously Fantastic Four we got coming up. We got Doomsday, which I said before, and I still believe, I think will probably be pushed, hopefully within the same year. But and then there's another movie, right? Spider-Man. Yeah. Or no, this year? Is there another one or no? After Fantastic Four?
No, just no. Okay, it's just Fantastic Four and then Doomsday.
Yep, and then obviously, yeah, we'll see what happens with Spider-Man, and then I think we got another show or two this year as well.
Yeah.
Ironheart.
Definitely. We have we have Ironheart, which I believe is next. I think that's June. Yeah, so we have Ironheart, then we have something else, then we have something else, and then December is Wonder Man. So I think to me on the show front, that unless there's one that you're gonna say in a sec that I'm like, oh shit, that's like a really big one. To me, I think the biggest one is Wonder Man. And let me ask you this, let me throw this to you at the very end here. Wonder Man, LA based, kind of the last segment that we need on this is, do you think there's a chance that we get a scene that's like a really expensive scene, but a scene that's like Mackie or like Shang-Chi or like somebody, or She-Hulk, like coming in to recruit Wonder Man? Because Wonder Man is going to be in Doomsday.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's another, there's very few kind of stepping stones to get us there, and Wonder Man is one of those.
I think that will most likely happen. Do you think we get the formation of is he? I mean, I don't know if is he usually part of like West Coast Avengers?
Yeah, I think that could be possible, because maybe Sam's team is the West Coast Avengers. I don't know. I mean, we definitely have our East Coast Avengers set. I can tell you that much. So maybe Sam does go to California and goes, we're going with maybe there's even 3 teams. It's like the new Avengers, Sam's Avengers, which is like Hulk and Spider-Man and people like that. But then also you have a lot of people on the West Coast now. You have Ant-Man, Shang-Chi, She-Hulk, Wonder Man, a bunch of different people. I mean, Cassie Lang, like a bunch of different people. So I think it'll be interesting. But I definitely think there's going to be some sort of another Doomsday stepping stone in Wonder Man. which will be interesting. I mean, maybe there'll even be one in Ironheart or something like that. But again, Dominique Thorne, though, not a name revealed for Thunderbolts, or not a name revealed for Doomsday. So it'll be interesting to see if Ironheart comes back in a big way. But guys, that will do it for us. We went a little long. We went a little long with this, but it just goes to show, I mean, how much I love the movie and how great it has been. Talking about this movie and seeing it. I'm going to see it again. And then I'm very much looking forward to seeing it at home when it comes on, Disney Plus and everything like that as well. But guys, let us know, what did you think of Thunderbolts down below? Or should I say New Avengers? Okay, that last question. Is this an Edge of Tomorrow situation? Are they going to literally change the name of the movie?
No.
Okay. I think, I don't think they will, but I think there's a chance they might. I think there is a chance that they might, but I don't know how you do that though. But it's interesting.
Or like Thunderbolts, the new event or something.
Yeah, like a subtitle. Yeah. I think that's possible too. And then I liked at the end too. It said the New Avengers and Bob will return. But all right, guys, we will return on the channel. Don't forget, we have not forgotten about Last of Us. We have not forgotten about Andor. We will be talking about both on this Wednesday's live show. But until then, guys, let us know what you thought about Thunderbolts down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And that'll be it for me. I've been one of your hosts, Sean Monk.
I've been your other host, TJ Cornwell. Thank you for watching. Please, like Sean said, like, comment, subscribe below. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And we will see you next time.